Hello and welcome back to our video series on Power BI Basics. Today we're going to be giving you a brief overview of the Power BI model view if you haven't watched the earlier video, as well as covering relationships in Power BI Data Modeler. If you haven't watched any of the previous videos, welcome. This is a video series that we're doing on Power BI Basics, where we're teaching you how to use the basics of Microsoft Power BI, hopefully getting you to a point where you're proficient. So this is the sales and return Power BI dashboard sample that I've downloaded from Microsoft. If you Google sales and return sample v2019-2012, you can download it from Microsoft's GitHub and you can follow along. What I have open is that dashboard. So while this might look confusing, we're going to get into it. So let's dive in. So first of all, this is Power BI Model View. You can get to Power BI Model View by clicking this Model View icon. Within Model View, if you have an established model, you're going to see a square representing each data table in your model. And then if there are relationships or auto-created relationships, which does happen, you're going to see lines in between those squares representing relationships. This is a pretty built-out model. So you're going to see a lot of squares and a lot of relationships. If you want to focus in on the relationships between just one or two given tables, one of the things you can do is you can click layout and you can then drag over a table. So in this case, I'm going to turn off my video. In this case, I'm going to drag over sales right here. And then once you have that table, you can then click these three dots or right click and then click add tables. And it'll go in and it'll bring all of the tables in that have a relationship with that table. For now, we're going to stick in this view because that other view was showing the full model, which is much more complicated, just so we can kind of have a conversation about the different Power BI relationships. So to create a relationship in Power BI between two tables, what you do is you drag one column on top of each other. You can click this Manage Relationships button right here, or you can go into Model View, click Relationships, click right here, and go New Relationship, or you can click Manage Relationships right here. In order to open up an existing relationship, you can click any of those Manage Relationship buttons, or you can double-click the relationship that you're into. Relationships in Power BI are based on one column from one table onto one column from another. Unlike merge in Power Query, you cannot create a relationship based on multiple columns. Now you might be wondering, why then wouldn't I just use merge? And the reason for that is because a lot of times there's some real speed and size advantages to leaving the tables independent and creating an actual data model. All right, the other settings that you're going to notice on this are going to be cardinality, cross-filter direction, and make this relationship active. And then you can also, if you are in both, you can select to apply the relationship securely in both directions, or if this was a direct query model, we can have it assume relationship integrity. Cardinality refers to how many matches exist between these two columns. So let's take this relationship as an example. Here we have our calendar table, which has one row per date, and then we have our sales table, which has multiple rows per date because it represents a sale. That cardinality is going to be many to one because there's many dates in the sales table to one date in the calendar table. There are a few different types of relationships. You'll have many to one, one to one, one to many, and many to many. We're not going to get to it in this video, but Power BI really likes one to many relationships or many to one relationships. Doing many to many or actually Power BI also really likes one to one, but try to avoid many to many relationships as much as possible. Finally, you also are going to have the cross-filter direction. You're going to have a single cross-filter direction, typically meaning that the table with one value filters the table with many, or you're going to have a both filter direction, which means the two tables can filter each other. Power BI, for performance reasons that we're not going to, again, get into this video, really, you should try to stick to single direction relationships. Once you've created a relationship, you'll be able to see the relationships as they exist in the model. What you'll notice is that you can see what we just talked about. So, for example, that cardinality or that filter direction in these relationships. So here's a one-to-one relationship where it's filtering both ways. And then here's a many-to-one relationship where it is filtering from calendar to sales. Same here, one to many where it's filtering from calendar to sales, and then same here, right here. This is what's called a star schema. This is pretty much an ideal Power BI data model just because of the way the Power BI works under the hood. This will always represent the best performance that you can get out of a report. A few quick tips and tricks. You can create blank tables and use them to store your measures in. That's what these are over here. So like these design DAX and analysis DAX, these contain all of the DAX measures associated with this model. And then you also can have tables, for example, for tooltips or for a few other things over here. Another thing to keep in mind is that you can also name your tables with a prefix to represent if they are dimensional tables. So dimensional meaning they contain attributes, or fact tables meaning that they contain actual like transactional data. So in this case, customer, it's going to contain dimensions about the customer, so it's going to be a dimensional table. Sales is going to be a fact table because it's going to hold facts about the sales transactions. Now, that's been a brief overview of Power BI data models. So what have we reviewed? We've reviewed how to create relationships, what cardinality is, as well as cross-filter direction. And then we've given you a few recommendations, which is do your best to do one-to-many or one-to-one relationships, and try to avoid cross-filter directions both ways. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in following along with this series, subscribe. If there's something I didn't cover that you would love to hear talk about, please leave it in the comments. I'm always open to feedback, and I'm looking to improve as I build out these videos. Thanks for watching.